So, already discussing the possibility of nuclear weapons. And the reason why is that a lot of Iran's ballistic missile capabilities are buried deep underground. And so you cannot actually destroy these facilities. But there's certain problems with the use of tactical nuclear weapons. The first thing is this. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, has already said that Russia will ensure the success and the survival of the Iranians. The possibility is that Putin announces that Iran is under the Russian nuclear umbrella. I don't want to say too much because people will think I'm insane, but I don't think that nation states are really the powers that people think they are. There are other entities that are above nation states. We saw that in the Epstein files, right? Everyone assumed that Jeff Epstein was this Mossad agent or CIA who was blackmailing these powerful Americans in order to garner support for Israel. But there were certain things that happen when we actually read the Epstein files that's very confusing. First of all, why are Bill Gates and Reid Hoffman, why are they going to Jeffrey Epstein begging for money? Bill Gates was the richest man in the world. Reid Hoffman is a billionaire. Why are they going to Jeffrey Epstein and begging for money, right? And then you have Elon Musk, who's very wealthy, and he wants to party with Jeffrey Epstein. He's sort of almost like bothering Jeffrey Epstein, like, hey man, I hear you for these wonderful parties. Can I join you? If you just look at the Epstein files, the way you think that the world is run is probably wrong. The Iran war, the outcome is very simple. The outcome is to unalive as many people as possible, to destroy the entire global economy, to force the United States out of the Middle East, to destroy the Gulf nation states, to suck Turkey into the war, to lead to the creation of the Greater Israel Project and eventually Pax Judaica, and then eventually to creating conditions for another world war called the War of Gog and Mag, where Russia and Iran attack Israel together, which will usher in the end of the world. That's a script. That's a plan they have in mind. So it's all been preordained. It's all been scripted out. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And it's only like, how long will this thing take? But they will send in ground troops into Iran. It will be a disaster. Look, if you see the world not through economic lens, the economy doesn't matter. It's all about the willingness of your population to fight wars and to die for what they believe in. And there are exactly 4 nations in Southeast Asia that have a history of dying for what they believe in. This includes Japan, South Korea, North Korea, and Vietnam. The war for Southeast Asia will be between these 4 nations. And you see Iran and Russia surviving the current conflict. So Russia is clearly win the war in Ukraine, and Russia will become a dominant power in Europe, which will force the rise of Germany as a response to Russia. So what's going to happen is that the American empire is going to finance and support the rise of Germany as a counterweight to Russia. But I think that even though they may fight some wars, I think in the long term, what will happen is a grand alliance between Germany and Russia. And that is the new power in the world. I think a grand alliance between Germany and Russia will be unstoppable. In Southeast Asia, that the new power will be Japan. So these are the 3 major powers in the world: a German-Russian alliance, Israel in the Middle East, and then Japan in East Asia. America will emerge in the Western Hemisphere because they have no competitors. But we can expect that America will be will have a lot of issues. It'll have civil wars. It will have to defend its territories in South America, in the Caribbean, against guerrilla insurgents who want their sovereignty. But the world is heading towards a new place, a brave new world. We've never seen it before. It'll be complete chaos. And quite honestly, the goal is to unalive as many people as possible because the world can't sustain 8 billion people. So you're trying to create as many conflicts as possible to reduce a population so that the population will be easier to govern, to create compliance. What this war has shown us is that the world really is a mirage. It's a hallucination. What you believe to be true is not actually true. I think many of us are somehow confused with the concept of Israel because after all, Donald Trump wanted to help Israel, but it seems from what we've seen so far, you see no footage is coming out of Israel and then what is happening in Israel that nobody knows because it seems that a huge devastation is happening and nobody knows what's going on. But from Iran, we know, as you mentioned, the footages are coming out. We know where they're heading and what is the devastation that is happening in Tehran, for example, right? So there's a very good reason why there's no footage coming out of Israel. The reason why is Israel was completely humiliated in a 1-2 day war. Remember, Israel really thought that it would take them like a few days to destroy Iran because their entire strategy was decapitation, right? So they went in to kill the top leadership of the Iranians. And for the first few days, it was really impressive. They were killing these scientists, these generals, these officials, these clerics in their homes. And so that showed you the extent of the Mossad network in Iran. That show you the extent of the advancement of Israeli weaponry. And it also show you that Israel had complete dominance over the skies. And this happened because of the fall of Syria, right? So after Syria fell to ISIS, this created this air corridor where now the Israelis can just fly uncontested directly to Iran. And before Syria was the early air defense warning system for the Iranians. That's why they had invested so much in protecting the Assad regime. So, in the first few days, it seemed as though Israel was on the brink of destroying Iran once and for all. But the Iranians proved much more resilient than anyone could imagine. And the Iranians started to fire back at the Israelis. And the Israelis were actually suffering a lot of damage, especially in Tel Aviv. And the images coming out of Israel were shocking and actually humiliating. And then something else happened that completely changed the regional dynamics. Bahrain. The king of Bahrain fled the country. The royal family saw what was happening, saw Iranian missiles hitting targets across the Gulf, saw the American bases getting destroyed, and they just abandoned the country, packed up and fled to Saudi Arabia. This was a complete regime change, but not the kind America wanted. This was Iran-aligned Shia population taking control of an entire GCC country. And this matters because Bahrain hosts one of America's largest naval bases in the region, the 5th Fleet headquarters. And now that base is surrounded by a hostile population that just overthrew a pro-American monarchy. And so the Israelis basically begged the Americans to come in and save them from losing to Iran. And that's why Trump and the Iranians sort of orchestrated or coordinated or choreographed this conflict, right? You know, where 1 or 2 B-2 bombers went in and blew up an empty mountain, and then the Iranians struck back and attacked an empty US base in Qatar, and that was it. And that was the end of the 12th day war. And then, if you remember, Netanyahu went to talk to Putin and asked Putin to do him a favor and talk to Iranians and said, listen, Trump says that we've taken out your nuclear weapons program, your uranium enrichment program, and that's good enough for us. So I promise you, Iran, that we, the Israelis, will not provoke another conflict. There will be peace between us. And Putin delivered that message that was widely reported at that time. And we really thought that at the end of the 1-2 day war, we would have peace in the Middle East because Iranians have demonstrated to everyone that they will fight back and they can fight back. And Israel doesn't have the capacity to actually destroy the regime, the government in Iran. Unfortunately, that's clearly not what they believe. And so what I think they understood is, you know what, we still want to destroy the government in Iran because that's part of the Great Israel Project. But in the future, we'll just censor media. We'll just disguise the fact that we're getting destroyed by the Iranians. And that's what's led to this blockade of information from Israel. If it's not Trump who's doing this, it's other people who are doing this. So first question is like, who is actually doing all this and how are they actually able to pull this off? And this is actually something that we need to truly understand. That's the war we need to fight. This is not a war between United States and Iran. That doesn't really matter in the end. It's really about a war of self-knowledge. Do each of us have the will, have the courage to seek the truth out, even though the truth can shatter our very sense of reality? So let me end with this note. Let me tell you what we need to do if we are to win this war individually. Plato's allegory of the cave. Plato's allegorical cave is this. Everyone is chained to the floor. All right, you're shackled on the floor. You can't move. Even your head, you can't move because of a chain. You can only steer ahead. You're sitting at an empty wall. Behind you is this fire. And then there are certain people, the elite, the true power in the world. They put up these puppets that the fire then reflects as shadows onto the wall. And then what we do is we look at the wall and we create our own reality. We give them a language. We make up stories about these shadows on the wall. And that's the reality that we live in today, where we think it's all real, but it's all an illusion. And the people behind the fire pulling the strings, they're the real power. The United States, Russia, China, this war between the United States and Iran, that's all an illusion, meant to distract you from trying to turn over and figure out what's really going on behind the scenes. And that is a challenge for us as human beings, to not be lied into this conflict before us, to think that it really matters who wins, the United States or Iran. It doesn't really matter. It really matters if Israel becomes an empire or not. It doesn't really matter. It matters if BRICS is successful or not. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. What matters is our understanding of the world. What matters is our desire, our courage to seek the truth, no matter how painful the truth is. That's what matters. Well, let me tell you this. Even though the Democrats were to win the midterms, and that is also suspicious and unlikely given what's happening, but even though the Democrats were to win the midterms, when they come to office, Congress would still allow Trump to fight this war. The Democrats have done absolutely nothing at all to stop Trump from fighting this war. Congress has a constitutional obligation to declare war, and they should have organized a vote in order to stop the president from declaring war. It's something called the War Powers Act. It should have been scheduled before the war started. And what they did was this. They scheduled the War Power Act's debate to be on Tuesday, like 4 days before the actual attack. So they knew the attack was coming. They scheduled it in at a particular time when it would not be relevant. So Congress is not stopping the president. Congress is enabling the president. Ground troops, all right? Not one powerful Democrat has said, I'm against ground troops. What you have is people like Chuck Schumer saying, oh, I've looked at the evidence. I've been briefed by Marco Rubio. And yeah, the situation is way worse than we think. So it's all just a deception. It's all just an illusion. It's already been decided what's going to happen. It's all a script. And the idea that actually, the American people can vote their way out of this? No, they can't. It's like 999% of humanity. Like even more than 99%. Like, maybe there are only a few thousand people actually in charge of anything, but they're able to do whatever they want. But it's all about the United States. And many people in Iran, they say it doesn't matter what they're thinking of. If they want to invade Iran, come here and we're waiting for them. That's why they're prepared in the grand invasion. They really feel that they can defeat the United States on the ground as well. And that's the calculation you've just mentioned, is all about the United States and how they feel. We know that the feeling at the agenda of the United States is not the end game, is not the outcome. The outcome is the combination of both forces, as we saw in Ukraine and Iran. You have a calculation of two alternatives, the United States and Iran. The two agendas are fighting each other. It doesn't matter if they want to invade Iran. They're going to destroy those people who are going to invade Iran. Look, I've said this many, many times. The United States will invade Iran and the Iranians will destroy the American invasion force. But what I'm saying is, that's what they want you to focus on. That's what they want you to think about. And I'm saying none of this actually matters. What really matters is for us to understand who is actually behind the curtain pulling these strings. Someone is doing this. It's probably not Trump.